Welcome to the Priyanka Neela Krishnan Show with me, Priyanka Neela Krishnan. This is Enterprise Security Series, episode 51, and today's topic is You approved the app but forgot the keys. I'm an enterprise data security product leader, author, and speaker. I've written a couple security books. One is Autonomous Data Security, and the other book is Jailbreaking LLMs. So, if you're using large language models in your organization for your AI systems, then of course, I think this is the book for you. And this book is talking about what sort of security layers you need to build in while using LLMs in your organization and how to protect your AI systems and AI risk in an enterprise world. That is Jailbreaking LLMs for you, that got recently published. And by the way, this enterprise security series is for people like security leaders and business leaders who want the real picture of enterprise data risk. Quick note before we start, this is my independent commentary, my own views, not tied to any employer, product, or vendor. Today, we are talking about the SaaS estate you already approved and the keys you handed out with it and never took back. Everyone worries about blocking the risky new application. Meanwhile, the breach walks in through one you sanctioned 2 years ago, gave broad access, and never looked at it again. Over the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'll show you how large and how invisible your real SaaS estate has become. Why the apps you approved are the ones you cannot see inside, and how to take back control of the doors you have cut into your own data. Let us get into it. 2 years ago, someone on your team connected a helpful application to your email or your files. They clicked allow, granted it broad access, ran a project, and moved on. That access is still live. Nobody reviewed it, nobody rotated it, and it is one of hundreds just like it, quietly holding keys to your data inside applications you sanctioned and forgot. The dangerous SaaS is not the app you blocked, it is the one you approved. And I am Priyanka Neela Krishnan, and let us talk about the keys you handed out and never took back. Let me point out where most SaaS security attention goes and why it is aimed slightly wrong. We spend our energy trying to block the risky new application, the unsanctioned tool an employee wants to adopt, the shadow IT that shows up on a scan. And that work matters. But here is what the incident data keeps showing. The breach often does not come through the app you blocked, it comes through one you approved 2 years ago and never looked at it again. Think about the life cycle of a typical SaaS approval. A team wants a tool, security reviews it, maybe checks a compliance box and approves it. The app gets connected to your email, your files, your CRM with broad permissions because broad permissions make the integration work smoothly. And then everyone moves on. The project ends, people change roles, the tool fades into the background. But the access does not fade. It stays live, broad, and completely unwatched, sometimes for years. So you have a whole population of sanctioned applications, each one holding standing keys to your data that passed a one time review and never looked at it again. That is a much larger and much quieter exposure than the shadow apps you are busy blocking. The worry is not just what gets in, it is what you already let in and then forget about. Approval is not a finish line, it is the start of an access relationship that most organizations never manage. Let me show you the gap between what you can see and what is actually connected to your data. On the left is what your single sign on catalog shows you: a clean, official list of applications you approved put behind SSO. It looks complete, it feels manageable, and it is the list most security teams treat as their SaaS inventory. On the right is what is actually connected to your environment: hundreds of standing grants, shadow applications that live entirely outside SSO because someone connected them directly. Dormant OAuth tokens from integrations that were set up for projects that ended long ago. Tools that a single employee authorized with a click, granting broad access to emails or files that no central system ever recorded. Here is the critical fact: an inventory built only from your SSO catalog misses a large share of the SaaS actually in use, often 40% or more. So the list you're managing from is not just incomplete, it is missing exactly the risky, unmanaged connections you most need to see. Because the well behaved applications are the ones that went through SSO in the first place. The dangerous ones are almost by definition the ones that did not. The left column is the SaaS estate you wish you had. The right column is the one you actually have and the one an attacker will happily explore. Here is the number that sizes the problem. The average company now runs around 106 SaaS applications. And in large enterprises, when you count everything, the number climbs into the hundreds, with some research putting it near 500, of which fewer than half are formally authorized. But the number that should really get your attention is this: roughly 55% of enterprise applications are shadow IT, meaning they were adopted without security's involvement or approval. So it is not a rounding error at the edge of your estate. The majority of the applications touching your organization's data may be outside your formal governance. And every one of those apps is a place your data can flow to, a set of credentials that can be stolen, and often a standing integration into your core systems. Now, layer on this. Research finds that most IT teams do not have a clear view of what SaaS applications are even in use, let alone what data those apps can reach or when their access should be revoked. So you have 100 plus apps on average, more than half adopted in the shadows, and limited visibility into any of it. That is not a manageable, well governed estate. That is sprawl. And sprawl is exactly the condition attackers exploit. Because in sprawl, nobody is watching the individual door they chose to walk through. Two numbers that show how blind and how exposed most organizations are here. First, more than 40% of the SaaS actually in use is missed by an inventory built from single sign-on alone. So, if your SaaS security program starts and ends with your SSO catalog, you are by design blind to nearly half your estate, and specifically blind to the unmanaged half, which is where the risk concentrates. The apps that skipped SSO are the ones nobody vetted, nobody monitors, and nobody remembers to deprovision. Second, according to recent research, 99% of organizations experienced at least one SaaS or AI related security incident in 2025. 99%. This is no longer an emerging risk you have time to get to later. It is a near universal experience happening now across essentially everyone. Put those two together, and the situation is clear. Almost everyone is getting hit through the SaaS layer, and almost no one has full visibility into that layer. The incidents are near certain and the visibility is partial. That is the worst possible combination, and it is why SaaS security has become its own discipline with its own tooling, because the old approach of vetting an application once and at approval time and trusting your SSO list was never built for an estate this large, this fluid, and this full of standing access. Nobody is watching. Alright, so here is the reframe, and it ties this episode back to the foundation of this whole channel. An OAuth grant is a standing key to your data. When an employee clicks allow to connect one app to another, they are not just enabling a convenient feature, they are minting a durable credential into your systems, one that usually has broad delegated permissions that often bypasses your multi-factor authentication at the app layer, and that typically never expires and is almost never rotated or reviewed. Now think about how you would treat a physical key to your building. You would track who has it, who would take it back when they left, who would audit the list regularly, who would never hand out hundreds of master keys and then simply forget about all of them. And yet, that is precisely what most organizations do with OAuth grants and app integrations. They hand out standing keys to their data at scale and never look at the list again. The reframe is to treat every app integration as what it actually is, a non-human identity with real access, which means it needs an owner, a documented reason to exist, and a life cycle. Exactly like the machine identities we talked about earlier in the series. This is the same problem wearing a SaaS logo. The apps are not the threat. The ungoverned, standing, forgotten access you granted them is. Manage the keys or someone else will use them. 3 moves for your Monday. First, inventory beyond SSO. Your single sign-on catalog is a starting point, of course, but not the whole picture. So build your real app inventory from multiple sources. Pull your finance and expense data to find the SaaS you are paying for. Use network and browser signals to find what is actually being accessed, and pull your OAuth grant logs to see what has been connected directly. The delta between all of that and your SSO list is your shadow estate, and it is usually where the risk lives. Second, review OAuth grants and scopes. I will tell you what every SaaS incident assessment finds without fail. An unreviewed OAuth grant that should have been revoked long ago. So go through them, revoke the dormant ones, right size the ones with permissions far broader than they need, and critically make this a recurring cadence rather than a one-time cleanup. Because new grants appear constantly. Third, give every integration a life cycle. Treat each connected app like the non human identity it is. Assign it an owner, give it an expiry date by which its access is reconfirmed or removed. Require a documented reason for it to exist. If an integration has no owner and no purpose anyone can name, that is not a tool you're using. It is a key you forgot you gave out, and it gets revoked. Inventory the sprawl, review the keys, and manage their life cycle. That is how you take back control of the estate you already approved. Let me close with the mental model I want you to carry out of this one. Every app you connect to your environment is a door you have cut into your data. Not a metaphorical door, a real one with a real key that a real attacker can use if they get hold of it. And over the years, in the name of productivity and convenience and moving fast, your organization has cut a lot of doors. Hundreds, probably. Most of them approved with the best intentions for real business needs. But approved is not the same as governed. A door you cut and then forgot is not a convenience anymore. It is an exposure, you guys. It's an exposure. So the work is not glamorous, but it is clear. Count the doors, all of them, not just the ones on your SSO list. Then audit who still holds the keys, which grants are still live, which are dormant, which are widely overscoped, and which belongs to apps nobody even remembers adopting. You cannot secure an estate you have never fully seen, and the first honest step is admitting how many doors you have opened without keeping track. The dangerous app was never the one you blocked at the door. It was the one you welcomed in, handed a key, and never thought about again. Go find those keys. They are still out there and they still work. This is the source slide from which I gathered references and content for my presentation today. I'll give you a second to glance over them. All right. This was our episode 51. The line to carry is every app you connect is a door you cut into your data, and an OAuth grant is a standing key you almost never take back. Inventory beyond your single sign-on list, review the grants, and give every integration an owner and a life cycle. If this was useful, please do subscribe and share it with whoever manages your SaaS or identity governance in your organization. Tell me in the comments how many SaaS apps you think your organization actually runs. And then go find the real number. It is always higher. This is me, Priyanka Neela Krishnan, and I'm an enterprise data security product leader, author, and speaker. Some of my recent security books include Jailbreaking LLMs. That's number 1. And number 2 is Autonomous Data Security. All right, this is my independent commentary on enterprise data security, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay secure, be happy. Bye, everybody.